She thought she heard the wind cry, but it was a man buried beneath fallen leaves. The woods behind Emily's rented home had always felt eerie after sunset, but that evening, something tugged at her. Perhaps it was the stillness, or the faint rustle that didn't belong. Her 6-year-old son Liam had gone chasing his soccer ball, and she trailed behind with quick steps and tired breath. That's when she heard it. Not a growl, not a bird, a whisper. "Help!" Her pulse spiked. Emily froze. "Hello?" she called, scanning the brush. Then, barely visible through the blanket of wet leaves and broken twigs, a pale hand reached up. She gasped. There was a man, covered in bruises, his lips cracked, eyes sunken with fear and exhaustion, almost fully buried in a shallow grave. Without hesitation, Emily dropped to her knees and began digging, her fingers clawing at the earth, trembling. Whoever this man was, someone had wanted him dead. And soon. He couldn't move. Couldn't speak more than 1 or 2 words at a time. Ambulance? No signal. Nearest neighbor? Miles away. So she did what she had done her entire life. She acted. Dragging his limp body across the mossy ground, she brought him into her tiny cabin, laid him on her couch, and covered him with the only clean blanket she had. As she tried to disinfect the wound on his shoulder, he winced. Their eyes met. "Thank you," he whispered. Her heart pounded. That night, while her son slept peacefully in the next room, Emily sat beside a total stranger, watching him breathe, wondering who he was, and who wanted him gone. He didn't say much, only his name, James. But before sleep took him, he murmured one sentence that made her skin crawl. "They think I'm dead. Don't tell anyone I'm here." In silence, they learned more about each other than words ever could. For the next 2 days, James barely moved. His body was healing, but slowly. Emily didn't ask questions. Not yet. Her instincts told her to wait, and besides, she had work, Liam's school, and a mountain of bills breathing down her neck. She didn't have time to babysit a half-dead man, but something about James kept pulling her attention back. The way he flinched at sudden noises. The way he stared at the trees outside like they might come alive and swallow him whole. And most of all, the loneliness in his eyes. It mirrored her own. She brought him soup, wrapped his wounds, and kept him hidden from neighbors. Liam thought he was a sleepy uncle from Mommy's old town. James chuckled the first time he heard that. By the 4th night, James sat upright for the first time. He asked if he could help, even just with dishes. Emily refused, but it touched her anyway. He was quiet, observant, never invasive, always watching her with a kind of careful respect that most men she had known never bothered to offer. One rainy afternoon, as Liam napped, Emily found James staring at the broken photograph frame on her counter. Her ex-husband's face had long been removed, but her younger self still stood there with a forced smile, baby Liam in her arms. "You've done all this alone?" James asked softly. She nodded. "For 6 years now. Life doesn't really leave room for breakdowns." James didn't say anything right away, but then he whispered, "You remind me of someone I failed." Their eyes locked, not in romance, but recognition. Two people worn down by life, carrying more weight than they ever let show. Later that evening, James helped Liam with his homework. Math problems turned into laughter. A soft joy bloomed in the small living room. And for the first time in years, Emily let herself breathe. Whatever James had been before, whoever he had been running from, didn't matter for that brief moment. He wasn't a millionaire in that house, just a man who was finally being seen. And Emily, she wasn't just a struggling single mother. She was a woman rediscovering the warmth of simple, human connection. Neither of them said it out loud, but both felt it. Something unspoken, beginning to grow between the cracks of their broken lives. He wasn't just a stranger in her home. He was the reason headlines had gone quiet. Emily's routine had changed, though she wouldn't admit it. She found herself making more tea than she needed, baking more than usual. Just little things. But on the inside, she felt it. James wasn't just recovering in her home. He was settling in. One evening, after Liam had gone to bed, she found James sitting alone at the kitchen table, staring at a folded piece of paper clenched in his hand. She gently placed a mug in front of him. "Chamomile, you said you liked it." James didn't move. His voice was quieter than usual. Do you ever Google missing people? The question felt sharp, like it had teeth. Sometime, she said carefully. Why? He slid the paper over to her. She unfolded it. There it was. Jameson Cole disappears. Tech billionaire feared dead after helicopter crash. The article was dated 12 days ago. The picture? Clean-shaven, polished, powerful, not the bearded, bruised man sitting across from her. Emily's breath caught. She looked up slowly. You're him? James nodded once. I tried to disappear, but someone found me first and tried to bury me alive instead. He didn't go into detail. Not yet, but Emily knew enough. Power attracts enemies. Money breeds betrayal. And James hadn't just escaped death. He'd been hunted. She should have been afraid. Should have called someone. Should have demanded he leave. But instead, she whispered, Who did this to you? His eyes darkened. Someone I trusted. Emily leaned back, trying to make sense of it all. A billionaire, here, in her falling-apart cabin, wearing her ex's old flannel, tutoring her son in math. You can't stay here forever, she said gently. I know, he replied, but I'm not ready to go back either. Silence stretched between them, thick with understanding. Emily didn't need details. Her own life was built on what people didn't say. She knew betrayal, knew what it meant to start over when everything had been ripped away. And for reasons she couldn't explain, she didn't want James to leave just yet. That night, as James whispered a good night to Liam and quietly shut the boy's door, Emily watched him from the hallway, not as a fugitive, not as a billionaire, just as a man with eyes that had seen too much, and a soul that might still be searching for home. Just when they began to feel safe, the past came knocking, with fists, lies, and cold steel. It happened on a Tuesday. Emily had just returned from town. Groceries in one arm, Liam's school folder in the other. The wind was heavier that day, sharp and restless, as if it knew something was coming before she did. When she stepped inside, she saw James pacing. He looked different, rigid, alert, like a soldier hearing drums before the battle. They found me, he whispered. Emily froze. Who? I don't know yet, but someone left this in the mailbox. He handed her a plain envelope. No name, just a single photograph inside. Of her, holding Liam's hand as they crossed the street near his school. A cold chill ran up her spine. They're watching me? James nodded. They're trying to scare me into coming out of hiding. You're leveraged now. Emily's instincts screamed, not just for herself, but for Liam. She had done everything to protect that boy. Everything. And now, because she had opened her door to a stranger, that safety was cracking. I need you to go, she said suddenly. James stepped back, as if struck. Emily, I mean it. Her voice was low, trembling. I've worked too hard to build something stable. I can't afford danger. Not for me, not for Liam. I don't know who you really are. I don't know what they want, but I do know what it means to lose everything. He didn't argue, just stood there, pain flickering across his face like lightning over a calm sea. Then quietly he said, They won't stop, Emily. Whether I'm here or not, they've seen your face now. Leaving won't protect you. She looked away, blinking back the sting behind her eyes. I didn't ask for this, she muttered. I didn't either, he replied. They didn't speak for the rest of the evening. James packed what little he had into a duffel bag. Emily tucked Liam into bed with extra care, her hands trembling as she kissed his forehead. And as night fell, James stood at the edge of her porch, his shadow long and heavy beneath the moonlight. I'll keep them away, he said softly, even if it has to be from a distance. She didn't answer, just nodded once. Her heart felt like a window cracked open in winter, cold wind slipping in where warmth once lived. And then he was gone, but the silence he left behind roared louder than any storm she'd ever faced. She told him to leave, but why did it feel like she'd pushed away the only man who ever truly saw her? Days passed. The house was quieter now, too quiet. Liam still asked about Mr. James, wondering when he'd come back to help finish the puzzle they'd started. Emily just smiled and said, He had to go help someone else. But every smile was a lie, she told herself. She couldn't sleep. Not properly. She kept locking the doors twice, leaving lights on in the hallway, jumping at the sound of tires on gravel. Paranoia sat on her chest like a stone. It wasn't just fear. It was guilt. James had told her the truth. Maybe not everything, but more than most people ever dared to. And she'd sent him away like a threat, when in her heart, she had started to feel safe with him, seen, less alone. She found herself standing at the window at night, arms wrapped around herself, staring at the woods. The same woods where she had found him, broken and buried. Only now she was the one buried, in questions. Had she overreacted? Could she have protected Liam without pushing James away? Was it cowardice or just survival? She dug through her kitchen drawer, pulling out the envelope he had left behind. The photo of her and Liam was still there. A threat, but was it also a reminder that no matter what she did, danger had already found them? Emily knew something had shifted in her life, and there was no going back. That night she wrote a letter, not a text, not an email, an old-school, pen-to-paper letter. James, I was afraid, still am, but I should have said thank you before I let fear speak louder than my heart. You didn't ask to be saved, but I pulled you from that ground anyway. And somehow it feels like you were the one rescuing me all along. I don't know where you are, but if you're still listening, we're not as safe as I pretended we were, and I'm not as strong without you here. Come back. If not for me, then for the little boy who still asks about you every morning. Emily. She folded it, placed it in an envelope, and stared at it like it might explode. Then she did something reckless, something brave. She walked into town the next day and handed it to a man in a diner with cold eyes and a scar on his cheek. I think you know how to get this to him, she said. The man looked surprised. And then, he smiled. You have no idea what you've just done, lady. But Emily didn't flinch, because maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop being afraid. Just when she thought he was gone for good, the wind carried his scent again, and the knock on the door didn't feel like danger. It felt like home. It was raining, not the violent kind, the soft kind, where every drop felt like a whisper, like the world breathing again. Emily was making tea when it happened. A knock, 3 slow raps on the wooden door. No urgency, no fear, just presence. She froze. Liam looked up from his coloring book. Mom, someone's here. Her heart was already racing. It couldn't be. Could it? She opened the door, slowly, carefully. And there he was, James. Wet hair, torn jacket, eyes red-rimmed from no sleep, or maybe too much thinking. He looked like a man who had walked through hell just to reach her porch. She didn't speak, neither did he. For a few seconds, only the sound of the rain between them mattered. Then she stepped back. He stepped in. The warmth of the house swallowed him, but it was the look in her eyes that melted the cold from his bones. I got your letter, he said softly. Good, she whispered, her voice breaking. Liam peeked out from behind the kitchen wall. Mr. James. James knelt down immediately, holding out his arms. Hey, buddy, miss me? Liam barreled into him like a missile, hugging him tight. Emily wiped away a tear she hadn't noticed falling. That night they ate together like they had 100 times before. Except this time, no one pretended. The laughter was real. The silences weren't heavy anymore. They were full. When Liam fell asleep on the couch beside James, Emily brought over a blanket and sat quietly beside them. Things aren't over, James said, but I'm not running anymore. She looked at him. You're staying? If you'll have me. She nodded once. I already do. He took her hand, gently, carefully, as if it were something sacred. In that moment, no threats existed. No past, no shadows. Only the sound of a child breathing softly. Only the rain whispering against the windows. Only the quiet miracle of a man once buried, now alive again in the warmth of a home he never thought he deserved. In the hush between heartbeats, he made her a vow, not with diamonds or flowers, but with the truth he'd never dared to speak before. The fire crackled in the hearth, casting golden light across the room. Liam was fast asleep in his bed upstairs, the house finally still. But Emily and James remained on the couch, both lost in thoughts that clung to the silence like mist. James held a mug of coffee, untouched. Emily's fingers traced the rim of her glass absent-mindedly. "You don't have to explain everything," she said quietly. "I don't need your full story." James looked over at her, really looked. "But I want to tell you." And he did. Not all of it. Not yet. But enough. He spoke about the people who once trusted him and how he lost them, about a deal gone wrong, about money that vanished into accounts he couldn't trace, and a betrayal that nearly got him killed. About the man who buried him alive, a man who still wanted him dead. He spoke not like a victim, but like someone who had carried too much for too long. Emily listened, not with judgment, but with a steady gaze that gave him room to breathe. And when the words dried up, she whispered, "So what now?" James set down the mug. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, head low. Then slowly, he turned to her, his voice steady. "I don't know if I can ever fix everything behind me, but I know what's in front of me. And if you let me, I'll spend every day proving I'm not the man who got buried." He reached for her hand. "I want to protect you, both of you. I want to rebuild a life, not just mine, but ours. And I swear, Emily, no matter what comes next, I'm not walking away again." Her eyes welled up, and she turned to hide it, but he caught her cheek, gently guiding her back. "You don't have to do it all alone anymore," he said. And then she kissed him. It wasn't rushed or desperate. It was warm, real, the kind of kiss that doesn't ask for promises because the promise is already there, sealed in every heartbeat between them. They stayed like that for a moment too long, until the fire shrank to soft embers and the world outside faded into irrelevance. That night, nothing needed to be said further. But as they lay side by side, not quite lovers, not quite strangers, Emily whispered into the darkness, "Whatever storm comes, we face it together." And James, he held her closer. He had made many promises in his life. But this one mattered. She thought happiness was a luxury she couldn't afford, until joy crept in quietly, through laughter, through small hands, through moments she never planned for. The sun hadn't shone like this in weeks. Emily stood barefoot in the backyard, the grass cool under her feet, her eyes closed as warm light kissed her face. Inside, she could hear Liam's giggles echoing off the walls, high, wild, uncontainable. And James, he was the cause of it all. He had turned their tiny living room into a cardboard spaceship, complete with kitchen foil controls and blinking toy lights. Liam stood proudly at the command center, while James wore a silly paper crown labeled Co-Captain Dad. Emily watched from the window, arms crossed, a soft smile tugging at her lips. It was like her heart had found a rhythm it hadn't known it missed. Later, over pancakes that James tried, and hilariously failed to flip, Liam chattered endlessly about their mission to Planet Crunchberry. Syrup stuck to his nose. Flour smudged across James's shirt. And Emily, she laughed, really laughed, the kind that bubbles out before you even realize it's happening. "You're beautiful when you laugh," James said suddenly, not even bothering to hide the softness in his eyes. She blushed, caught off guard. "I haven't done it in a while." "Well," he said, flipping the last pancake with exaggerated flair, "get used to it." The day passed in the kind of golden blur she'd almost forgotten existed. Errands turned into spontaneous ice cream runs, an old song on the radio turned into a driveway dance, and even Liam's tantrum over bedtime ended in cuddles and whispered bedtime stories from James. That night, when the house fell quiet, Emily sat on the porch steps, wrapped in a sweater. James joined her, a mug of hot cocoa in his hands. "You didn't have to do all this," she said softly. "I didn't do anything," he replied. "I just showed up. That's more than most ever did." They sat in silence, watching the stars emerge, one by one, like hope. "I used to think joy was a mistake," Emily admitted. "Like if I let myself feel it, something would come along and snatch it away." James reached over, taking her hand. Then let's stop waiting for the snatch. Let's just hold on to this, even if it's just tonight. She nodded and leaned her head on his shoulder. It wasn't a proposal. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was pancakes, cardboard spaceships, and quiet porch nights. And somehow, that was more than enough. Love bloomed in warmth, but it's the storms that test its roots. And some storms arrive not with thunder, but with silence, distance, and a past that won't stay buried. Winter arrived earlier than expected. The wind was sharper, the nights longer, and Emily noticed James becoming quieter. Not withdrawn, but preoccupied. He still played with Liam, still cooked dinner, and stole kisses in the hallway. But sometimes his eyes didn't match his smile. Then one morning, Emily found him sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a letter. "Everything okay?" she asked, pouring coffee. He hesitated. "It's from my lawyer." Her hand slowed. "About your past?" He nodded. "The man who tried to kill me, he's out. The charges didn't hold. Lack of evidence." Emily sat down. "What does that mean for us?" James looked at her with a mixture of guilt and determination. "It means I might have to disappear again to keep you safe." "No." Her voice was firm, almost trembling. "You don't get to walk away, not this time. But what if I'm the reason danger shows up at your door? And what if you're the reason we learn to face it together?" The days that followed weren't easy. James became more protective, sometimes overbearing. He installed cameras around the house, changed routines, slept near the front door more often than in her bed. Emily felt the distance building like frost between them. Liam noticed too. "Why doesn't James laugh anymore?" he asked one night. Emily's heart cracked a little at the question. The tension wasn't just about fear, it was about trust, control, powerlessness. James was so used to running, to solving things alone, that he didn't know how to stay and fight as a team. One night, during a storm that rattled their windows and shook loose branches from the old oak, Emily found him packing a bag. She stood in the doorway, soaked in disbelief. "You said you wouldn't leave." "I lied," he whispered, "because I didn't want to believe I'd have to." She walked up to him, grabbed the bag, and tossed it aside. "Then tell me the truth, not the noble version, the real one." James's mask crumbled. "I'm scared, not for me, for you, for Liam. I've been hunted before, Emily. They don't stop." "Then let them come," she said, voice steady. "We'll be ready." "You really think we can survive this?" "I think love that only exists in the sunshine isn't love at all." There in that moment, surrounded by thunder, doubt, and shaking bones, something deeper rooted itself between them. Not a promise, a decision. They wouldn't let fear drive them anymore. Sometimes the next chapter isn't written on a fresh page, but over scars, over ashes, and with trembling hands that still choose hope. Spring came slowly, one thawed morning at a time. The ice melted from the eaves, crocuses pushed through the frost-hardened soil, and inside the little house, something softer began to bloom again. James stayed, not as a guest, not as a protector, but as a man choosing to build, with Emily, with Liam, with his uncertain future, no longer running from shadows, but reaching toward light. They moved together now. Grocery lists were written as a team. School pickups were shared. Saturday pancakes became tradition. Even their arguments, because yes, there were arguments, started ending with hugs instead of walls. James started building wooden shelves in the garage. "For books," he told Emily. "You'll need more room once you publish that novel." She'd once mentioned it in passing. He hadn't forgotten. She got him a plant. "So you learn how not to run," she teased. One day, while repainting Liam's bedroom, they let the boy help. He ended up smearing blue across James's nose and green down Emily's cheek. The room was a disaster. But the laughter that followed, it felt like the world had tilted back toward balance. And then came the job offer. A nonprofit, one James had anonymously funded in the past, asked him to become their director of outreach. It meant coming forward, publicly, no more hiding. Emily stood beside him the night he gave his speech. "I was buried once," he told the room. "Not just beneath dirt, But beneath guilt, regret, fear, a woman, a stranger, pulled me from that grave. And today I stand not because I escaped the past, but because I found something worth living for in the future. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, as the sun dipped behind the hills and Liam fell asleep in the back seat, Emily reached over and took James's hand. "So," she asked, voice light, "what now?" He looked at her, eyes full of peace. "Now," he whispered, "we live. For real this time. No more whispered fears. No more pretending joy wasn't earned. Just the beginning of something whole. Not perfect, but real." And for Emily, we're the single mother who once only knew how to survive. This was everything she never dared to dream. When love is tested not by distance or doubt, but by danger and impossible choices, who we become in that moment defines everything. It happened on a Sunday. James was at the farmer's market with Liam, picking out strawberries while Emily stayed home finishing her manuscript. The windows were open, sunlight spilled across the floor, and everything felt safe until the phone rang. It was a voice James hadn't heard in months. "You thought hiding behind a woman and a child would keep you safe?" the caller growled. "You took something from me, and now I take everything from you." James didn't hesitate. He rushed home, tires squealing, mind racing with every dark possibility. Liam was safe. He dropped him at his friend's for a sleepover after the market. But Emily? The house was silent when he arrived. Too silent. He kicked open the front door, heart in his throat. The living room had signs of struggle, a broken vase, a scuff of blood on the wall. Then he found the note, handwritten, one line. "Come alone, or she dies." The address led him to an abandoned warehouse just outside town. No police, no backup, just James, and the weight of everything he loved hanging in the balance. Inside, the man he once called partner waited. Vincent, the same man who betrayed him, left him for dead, and now returned for revenge. Emily was tied to a chair, a bruise blooming on her cheek, but her eyes were fierce. "You don't have to do this," James told Vincent. "I already did," Vincent sneered. "You took my life. I take yours. Or hers." James stepped forward, voice low. "Let her go. I'll give you the codes, the accounts, everything." "You think I care about money?" Vincent snapped. "I want you to suffer. Like I did." He raised his gun. Emily gasped. James moved. A blur of instinct, love, and finality. The shot rang out. It was James who fell. The bullet hit his side, not fatal, but enough to drop him. Enough to give Emily the second she needed to kick backward, toppling her chair and creating chaos. Sirens wailed in the distance. James had triggered a silent beacon in his watch. One last failsafe he never told Emily about. By the time the police stormed the warehouse, Vincent was disarmed, arrested, screaming curses as he was dragged away. James lay on the ground, blood soaking his shirt, eyes on Emily. "You always were the strong one," he whispered, smiling through the pain. "Don't you dare say goodbye," she cried, cradling him. He didn't. He just squeezed her hand and closed his eyes, but he wasn't gone. Not yet. Peace doesn't always come with silence. Sometimes it's the laughter after pain, the hand that stayed, the heart that chose to love again. 3 months later, the world looked different. The grass outside Emily's house was greener. The porch swing had been fixed. James insisted on doing it himself during recovery, even though he groaned every time he moved. Liam's laughter once again filled the halls. He'd started calling James J, short for James, but also for "just ours now," a phrase he'd made up himself one night while holding both their hands. The warehouse incident made headlines for a week. "Billionaire hero saves mother from former business rival," the stories read. James gave one interview and then disappeared back into the quiet life he chose. Not because he was hiding anymore, but because he had nothing left to prove. Emily's book was accepted by a publisher. The dedication read, "To the man I pulled from the earth, who taught me how to plant dreams in it." One evening, under a sky painted gold and lavender, James set up a picnic in their backyard. Candles, Liam's favorite lemonade, and Emily's favorite jazz playing softly in the background. He didn't kneel. He didn't need to. He just pulled out a simple ring. No diamond, just a band engraved with a date and a promise. I can't promise we won't face storms, he said, but I can promise I'll never leave you in the dark again. Emily's eyes welled up. She didn't need a fairy tale. She needed this. Truth wrapped in loyalty, rooted in shared scars and stubborn hope. She said yes. That night, as Liam fell asleep on the couch with his new comic book, Emily and James danced barefoot in the kitchen, swaying slowly to a tune only they could hear. No more secrets, no more whispers, just harmony. The kind you build, not find. The kind you earn, not dream. The kind a single mother in a buried billionaire could only reach by walking through fire and coming out, not unburned, but unbroken. And in the soft glow of the new life they built, their story didn't end. It simply began again, hand in hand.